Hey guys, how are we doing? Crypto Insight UK here, bringing you back another YouTube video. So I'm going to start this video with a little bit of positivity before we move on to some technical analysis. So potentially a spot ETF as early as tomorrow. That's what I tweeted yesterday from Eric Balkunis, who is like a specialist in ETFs, senior ETF analyst for Bloomberg. Essentially, from what I've read, and this could not be 100% correct, but today at 5:30 or 4:30 p.m. Like US time, I don't know whether that's Eastern or Western. I presume Eastern. They will list the ETFs on the DTCC. So after market close today. However, because tomorrow is a public holiday in the US, being Thursday, it might not be live until Friday. But that's like, I know that sounds like if then but it does seem like the spot ETF is coming. It seems like it's going to be live on the DTCC tonight, so we'll obviously be able to check that as well, and then obviously be live for trading on Monday. So that, I mean, on Friday, sorry. So that's exciting. It's a great step in the right direction, and let's see what happens. As well as that, there is potential for the US government opening. I don't know if that's today, because the House are voting on the bill to reopen the government today. If they vote positively, I don't know if they come straight back to work or whether they'll come back on Friday as well. So we'll see. Two pieces of news that I wanted to keep you up to date with before we go into TA, which could affect this TA, to be honest with you guys. But my base case is still this, and I could be duped to the downside because I also made the case for this as well. Let me get my Twitter back open. Now this is going to take me a little while to scroll because I wasn't planning on doing this. Let me see if see if I can search it and find it straight away. If I can't, then we'll just go to. I'll show you the thought. Oh, here we go. Perfect. This is a positive base case. I'm not saying my other TA is negative. I'm just saying there is a chance that the bottom is in, because this could be reaccumulation. As you can see, we had the shakeout area, which is pretty, like 3 peaks, pretty similar to this. Then we had like some choppy price action in here before pushing higher, creating this creek, and then coming down into a spring and potentially looking to leg up from that area. Now, that's the most positive potential case for us right now. As you can see, the spring comes just like almost to the same level as the shakeout level. So let's see. That's the most positive. However, the thing that does concern me are these wicks. Obviously, we've come close to sweeping these wicks, and on trading different, what we can see is on the hourly, liquidity is building. Has built at these areas, especially since the lows. People have been jumping in long here. Whether we come down and flush these people out and then start to return to the upside, I don't know, but I'm really cautious of this. It reminds me of the 106k level. Let me see if we can show you that 106k. That was an absolute thorn in our side when we were back here. This was 106k. Remember it really well. We were stuck in this level for ages. It's like June or July when we got into this area of trading that we're looking at here. Oh, my PC is not loading very fast. I've got my new PC on the way, as you guys know. But we had this 106k level of liquidity building for a long time, and then we got really close to it, 107.3, never took it, and I was like, oh, we're going to take it probably at some point. We started to push away, and I was like, I really would like us to take it, and then I can become more bullish. This started to form like all the way back here, as I said, in June, July. And then what happened was we started to push up, and then boom, we got that liquidation. We came through that liquidity at the 106k. I don't know why my PC is not loading that well, but you can see what I'm trying to say, and that's just what I don't want to happen again here. Look, the liquidity now is nothing like it was like back there. I don't know if what you can see on my PC with it being like slow to load, but if you can see what I'm seeing, this liquidity here is nothing like what is potentially building below. So I'm going to refresh my liquidity because I think I've just got my PC's knickers in the twist. But if we look now, this liquidity here is nothing on the same size as this liquidity, because when we zoom out to see the liquidity that was there at 106k, this goes just yellowy green. and that's deep red. But then if we just zoom in on this specific level, we've got this deep red liquidity with some yellow below us as well. So I do presume, guys, like, not presume, because we have, it's nowhere near as dense as 106k. So let me say that. That makes it a little less likely that we take it, but I would be max bullish if we took this. I'll be so bullish if we take this liquidity here. Boom, get rid of that. Everyone will be screaming bear in this area. Everyone's going to be like, yeah, that's it, we're done. We've lost this. That area is like, what was it, 9 all the way down to about 90k, which would take us to even below these wicks here. Imagine what price, like what sentiment's going to be like if we do have one more little turnover down here for Bitcoin. Everyone's going to be screaming that the bear's here, we're done, all this sort of stuff. And I'm just going to say, look, that's my most likely area for reversal, and I've said that since we were like dropping out of this range. I was like, look, I think this is the most likely thing to see. A full liquidity reset. We've basically seen it on alts. To see that on Bitcoin as well, I think it's likely. I think it's well, 80% of the time we move into those deep areas of liquidity essentially, and this is what it looked like on the daily. Now, I'm not going to discuss the liquidity below us because I've covered that in other videos, basically saying that people are removing liquidity below us, and that's why I think it doesn't probably go as deep as like 70k, which is where I do think we will probably be looking a bit more bearish. The liquidity above us, in my opinion, gets taken. Like it just does. Like you don't get these dense areas of liquidity. The most liquidity we've ever seen in terms of like short positions, and then them not get stopped out, or we haven't seen that historically. So I just can't see a world where all these short positions will be in winning positions if we start to have like a more drawn out or prolonged bear market. Realistically, since the highs, how long have we been downtrending for? 37 days. Yeah, it feels awful, but it's nothing that we haven't seen before. Like when we were in this area here, January, we trended downwards for 79 days, and it's not an enjoyable period. I know it's not, but I still think the same as what I thought. Even like in this period, I thought we go higher, and I still think we go higher. There's different arguments about liquidity. There's different arguments about why, like gold sucking in liquidity. There's arguments that the like Treasury General account hasn't been able to distribute, so that's been sucking in liquidity. But basically, the world, if you look around, and we had this discussion with my friends last night, that the world's pretty fucked, guys, to be honest. And if you look at equities, they're at all-time highs. You look at gold, it's towards all-time highs. The dollar's weak. Crypto hasn't really rallied recently. And you think to yourself, well, how can this continue to go higher? What's going to happen? Are we going to crash? But at some point, I do think that the bubble will deflate, but I don't think we're anywhere near that point. And even if the bubble does deflate, I'm not talking about crypto specifically, I'm actually referring to equities here. That capital does have to go somewhere because you value the equities against something. And in this case, you value it against the US dollar because you price the S&P in dollars. So the dollar would have to get stronger for that to happen. And if people are saying that or like Trump saying that they want a weak dollar, I think it's quite unlikely that the dollar gains. I do think the dollar will gain strength at some point, but I think it's quite unlikely in the short term that the dollar gains strength because it's not what Trump wants to do. But there's obviously another world where capital flows out of the US, and in the world where capital flows out of the US, there could be a decrease in the dollar and a decrease in the S&P. But then, if the dollar decreases, then things against the dollar struggle to decrease as fast, obviously, because the dollar will be losing strength. And if the dollar's losing strength and you value things in the dollar, then inadvertently the denominator and the numerator cannot decrease at the same time. The money will flow somewhere, is what I'm trying to say, and that is what will happen. Even if things start blowing up left, right, and centre, which I don't think we're anywhere near that point, but some people do, and that's fine. But that capital will flow somewhere. It may be gold, it may be crypto, it may be into the dollar, it may be into equities. Like if something goes or something starts to go, people saying like, oh, we're going to hit a prolonged bear market here for crypto, for example, the capital will flow somewhere else. It will. And I think that some things may come into a bear market, but not quite yet. I think equities may into next year. Maybe to the end of next year, depending on AI. Though I actually have a thesis, and I'm looking towards the future, and I think the reason they're spending so much capital is because they can see AI leading us into a boom. in the short term, I think crypto booms, and then I think what will happen is we'll start to see some larger utility in AI because of the pace that we're seeing growth there. And AI could carry the market through. That's actually a genuine, that's probably my base case, to be honest, because of what I've just said. I don't think any country can really let things go. And if they do, the capital is going to flow somewhere. And if it does flow somewhere, it's probably positive for crypto again. So I hope that that kind of makes sense. I feel like I've just like flip-flopped around with thoughts and not really got the thought across. But I hope you can kind of see what I'm saying is, essentially, if things do start to fall, and I don't think we're there for crypto. I also don't think we're there for equities yet. But at some point when things start to fall, don't be too scared, because something is going to have to go up for things to fall. That's what I'm trying to say. There's always something that goes up when things come down, whether that's, I think fiat's probably the closest thing to being done rather than equities or crypto. I think fiat's, we're at the end of the fiat currency as we know it. We're at the end of like 100-year cycle of dollar domination, and before that we had the UK obviously, but we've removed the fiat currency being the dollar from the gold standard, so it's backed by nothing. We're inflating it away. I think if anything's going to go, I think it's going to be the dollar, which would actually lead to like a prolonged bubble for equities, crypto, and and gold, anything you value in the dollar. I don't mean the dollar just the dollar. I mean like fiat currencies in general, because one way or another they kind of are all tied together. But yeah, that's what I think, at least in the short term, like short to medium, that is. But I think that makes sense. So just something to think about. Anyway, I'll come off my little rant, and we'll continue with what I think is going to happen here in the short term for crypto. I can see a world where alts catch a bit of a bid here. I think a lot of alts are at the bottom of the range. The discussion that we have to be aware of, though, is if Bitcoin does come down into this area, which is like about between an 8 and a 13% drop, depending on where we come, like say 8 to roughly the low here that I'm looking at, which would sweep this low and come into this cluster, to like a 12-13%. If we sweep all the lows and take all that liquidity on the hourly, alts probably do get hurt there. They probably do, and ETH probably comes down to like this sort of level here. Oh, really bad drawing. I'll just get the straight line one on, so I don't know why I'm trying to draw freehand. In that situation, ETH probably sweeps the lows, taps onto this major support. This is something that I've discussed for a while. Taps into this major support, could come anywhere into this zone, could tap there, and then we could go. But I do think, and I know Benjamin Cohen hates me for talking about this, but I do think that Bitcoin dominance isn't massively strong here. We're seeing bearish divergences on Bitcoin dominance, depends if you include this wick or not. But even so, like, price is struggling to like gain momentum to get, like, it makes higher highs slightly, but the RSI is making a lower high. So to me, this looks like, if this is a normal chart, I'd be like, yo, this is bearish. Like, look at this, all these stop losses are going to be starting to grow below this level. And if you take us down to the 4 hour, we can say like we did actually lose and close below this level for Bitcoin dominance. Like, it's quite clear that we did get some closes below that, depending on where you draw your line. But even so, we did, and we still are chopping around right at the low, closing in and out of the support. That would indicate a minimum move down for Bitcoin dominance to like these levels where the like ascending channel started, which would be down to about 58.3%. We're currently at 60.12, so that's something to watch for there. Like that, I'm bringing this up to your attention because I do think there's a chance that alts rally here. I think it's a difficult discussion, because if Bitcoin does come down, historically and throughout this cycle even, alts come down with it, and probably a little bit more, because Bitcoin will create cascading stop losses and people price against Bitcoin as well, so it brings both things down. But if you look at things like XRP and XRP dominance, XRP Bitcoin, you can see, for example, that XRP itself has the opportunity to rally here. This is XRP dominance. It's broken out of this downtrend. Could it come back and retest the top of this trend line before continuing? Yes, of course. Could we just hold this cluster here? We're just tapping into it now. This would technically be now support, which would look like this. Could we just hold this level of support and start to go again? Yes. So it's just up in the air. I'm watching closely because I do think there's a world where alts do well here and Bitcoin still chops down into that area. I think it's a really hard call to make, and it's quite an extravagant call to make, especially at this point when everyone's bearish towards life. But I think it's one to take into consideration. XRP against both ETH and Bitcoin is right at resistance. We have bounced back from that resistance so far. Look, against ETH, it's that 7.1 level that we've discussed so many times, 0.00071. We still haven't quite managed to get the break above that. The daily close as high as it ever has been. I wonder if the 3-day closed above our levels. No, 3-day still didn't manage to get that close either. So we're just still monitoring. We could still range here for XRP ETH. We could come back down towards the lows and have another go. And I wanted to just check one. What I was going to check one other thing there. Oh, the Russell. How's the Russell looking? The Russell's still like ranging at all-time highs. Again, we are seeing the RSI pull down. This is in the 3-day. Let's get to the daily. We are seeing the RSI pull down the daily even. But what we've seen is Russell's held all-time highs and the RSI has cooled off quite a lot. And then, although that is potentially a bearish signal, because it's cooled off so much and we've still held at highs, it gives us quite a lot to the upside if we do manage to catch a bid somewhere. And that bid could come through if the government reopens, if the Treasury general account starts to be spent again, and we see potentially like Trump saying he's going to stimmy check people $2,000. These things are potential catalysts for the market, so they are things that I'm watching for. It basically just depends on Bitcoin, guys, in the short term. Bitcoin's looking like the liquidity below us is tempting, but above us, I just think that it's a no-brainer that at some point we take that for Bitcoin. It's the same for ETH. It's the same for XRP. I don't want to tell you any more or any less than that. For ETH, there's this tiny little bit of yellow liquidity below us here, which is just above where the that major support would lie. This is the major support here for ETH. We could take this liquidity and potentially then tap onto that before we send it. But look at the liquidity difference even between above us and below. That liquidity has grown significantly since even we took the all-time highs. This on the left, as you can see here, was by far the densest area of liquidity and there was nothing above us. But since we've been trading down, more and more shorts have been piling in and now there's loads of liquidity above us. And then if we look at XRP, just to finish, XRP is the same as like most altcoins in this position. We've taken all the liquidity to the downside on that liquidation day. We sucked it all up and now all above us is just liquidity sitting there. And I really, really doubt we live in a world where all those shorts are just gonna just sit here and print for the whole of like a prolonged bear market. I just can't see that happening. Well, we could just have 1 or 2 days where we just blow through the liquidity and then we bear. I don't think that's base case. I think we go much higher, obviously. But that is a different suggestion. But I can't see that liquidity staying there. I just can't, because all these people are just winning positions. And exchanges and market makers both know if they move the price up here, they both make a shitload of money. And that's the same for all altcoins, ETH, and even Bitcoin. So I'm going to leave you with that. That's what I think happens at some point. It's just where we find this low. And as I said, I do think this is the most likely area for reversal because we've got that liquidity below us. This would shake a lot of people out. The shorts would probably continue and increase above us. Everyone would be convinced we're in a bear market, and then that would be a great time to reverse. But that's what I think. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comment section below. If you'd like to trade on any leverage, I've got a link to WEX and MEXC in the description below. As always, nothing I say is financial advice, but I hope you enjoy the video. Peace up, A-Town down, as Crypto Insight UK would say.